I used to be doubtful, but now I'm not so sure. Boom, boom. In this episode, until the Lord gives doubting Thomas incontrovertible evidence, he doesn't believe that it's Jesus who has come and spoken to him. That's what happens. But the point of the story comes at the end, when Jesus commends those who, without seeing him, believe it when he comes to them and speaks. Thomas knew it was Jesus because he saw the evidence of the Lord's wounds. So he listened to him. He had the benefit of his senses. He saw and heard the Lord. We're different. We can only see and hear God through faith. Perhaps you're like me and doubt it when you think Jesus has come and spoken to you. We aren't given the kind of evidence that Thomas was. So how do we know for sure? You might see it as far-fetched that God would speak to you. However, the Bible often explicitly tells us that we can have an intimate friendship with him, and here are just 3 examples of that. In the book of Micah, it says that we are to walk humbly with the Lord. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says that he and the Father will come and make their homes in our hearts. And in the book of James, it says that if we draw near to God, he will draw near to us. According to an ancient Hebrew proverb, God is closer than our own breath. Quite close. Psalm 139 shows us that God is in every place. David writes, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence?" And also that he's in every moment. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. For God, there is no here or there, no past, present, or future. It's all one to him. He's in every millisecond and in every molecule. That being the case, he's surely able to speak to us, and if we want to speak with him, it's unlikely that he'll give us the cold shoulder. Even though I'm flawed and sinful, ask my family, ask my friends, I believe that God is willing to converse with me. Why? Because, except for Jesus, all the heroes of faith in the Bible, from the patriarch Abraham through to the disciple Peter, are flawed and sinful too, and yet we see God conversing with every one of them. The 19th century evangelist Oswald Chambers spoke of being careless of all other cares and concentrating on Jesus, of looking at Jesus alone, and Chambers suggests that out of this comes a new perspective. For most of us, listening to God doesn't lead to channeling the Apostle Paul and converting the masses. It leads to a different disposition, a different outlook, and through that, we're better equipped for the day ahead. You see this transformation in Psalm 13. A despairing David begins by imploring the Lord, "How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day have sorrow in my heart?" But he ends the psalm with this, "I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." After his prayer, David thinks and feels differently. God speaks in many ways. For example, he might speak to you through the Bible, through pictures he pops into your head, or through the things others say to you. For me, conversations with the Lord mostly go in the following way. I concentrate on Jesus, bring my worries and hopes to him, and he replies by placing in my mind a particular psalm or the chapter number of a particular book in the Bible. Then, when I turn to the relevant page, I sense him running a highlighter pen through the sentences he wants to use to speak to me. These highlighted passages relate to what I've just been praying about and dovetail with one another. Taken together, they have a cohesive meaning, which is expanded when I listen to the Lord and write down what I believe he is saying through them. I couldn't prove to anyone that God has spoken to me, but I know he has. Because of that dovetailing, because of that cohesiveness, and because I come out of the conversation altered. I concentrated on him, expressed myself about a trouble or concern or hope, and by the end of the conversation, he changed the way I thought and felt about it. When I spoke to him, God listened and replied. Now, if I only experienced this a few times, these dovetailing verses that address what I've been praying about might be coincidences. If it's been happening daily for the past 40 years, that would be a lot of coincidences. And if what God says through the passages relates to what I was praying about, I'd call that a conversation. And as I said, the experience alters my perspective and changes my outlook. We see a similar transformation in the Doubting Thomas episode. When he examines Jesus' wounds, Thomas is concentrating on the Lord, and that leads to an altered perspective. Before, he doubts that it's Jesus who has appeared before him, but once he's persuaded that it's really the Lord who's there with him in that room and listens to what he says, Thomas becomes a changed man. His doubts vanish, and he recognizes Jesus as his Lord and God. This scene is a model of dialogue with Jesus. Focus on him, speak to him, believe that it's really the Lord replying, and be transformed. At the conclusion of the encounter, Jesus says that those who believe they see and hear him without the use of their senses will receive a special blessing. I said I believe I have a conversation with the Lord every day, but that doesn't mean I'm certain about it. I have my doubts, and regularly. I guess you do too, but here's a picture that might help us both. Remember the parable of the prodigal son? At the end of the story, while the boy is a long way off, the father spots him coming home, and what does he do? He picks up his robes and sprints out to greet him. We might wonder if God will have a conversation with us, but in all kinds of ways, the Bible suggests that it's something he really wants to do.